my brain. Feels like there's something in there. Now, look, this is no joke, but apparently there's a whole big scandal now. Well, I wouldn't call it a scandal, but there must have been a brain worm, or there was a brain worm in RFK Jr.'s skull, and it died. Look, folks, be careful what you eat, what you drink, where you're at, because look, there's these tiny microorganisms that could get inside you and cause a whole lot of trouble. And you got a worm eating your brain, and I'm already kind of getting a splitting headache, no pun intended. You know, you just got to be careful out there, okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's go ahead and pull up this video here, because this has been shaking the whole entire World Wide Web and all of the media. RFK Jr. and the fantastic brainworms.
Here's the headline. RFK Jr. says doctors found a dead worm in his brain. The New York Times' Suzanne Craig reports that in a 2012 divorce deposition, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. argued that he had cognitive problems that diminished his earning potential.
Look, it's serious, but holy cow, man. Hey, make sure you cook and boil your food properly.
As proof, Kennedy described a time in 2010 when doctors found a worm that got into his brain and ate a portion of it and then died. In that deposition and in interviews with the Times, Kennedy has claimed to suffer from short and long-term memory loss, perhaps because of that brain parasite or mercury poisoning, as well as atrial fibrillation and hepatitis C. Joining me now is Suzanne Craig, the person who broke this story, New York Times investigative reporter.
Yes, and you know what the New York Times and all the media is going to do? Oh, RFK Jr. can't be a serious candidate because, oh my goodness, he had a brain worm there. That's why he needs to drop out of the race. Ha, 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 ha. Listen, corporate media, Biden ain't no spring chicken either. Biden's like, watch, a brain worm goes inside Biden's brain and comes squiggling out and says, hey, everybody, there's nothing in there. How is this man walking? Okay, maybe that's mean. Maybe that's me being a bad guy. I'm not sorry. I mean, come on. Because you know how the media is going to go. They're going to say, oh, well, we can't take RFK Jr. seriously, so he has to drop out. Look, I got my criticism for RFK Jr. Come on, corporate media. Really going to go ahead and go to bat for Kamala or Biden? And before Republicans start, dancing around, hey, look, I think all these trials against Trump are BS, but you never know how the legal system works. Trump's got like a whole lot of legal cases against him. So, come on. At this point, I think this is the best we could do. Unfortunately, America, I think we're scraping at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, the ghost of Aurelian is looking down at us with shame.
And the journalist that brings us the word brainworm as the word of the day tonight. Suzanne, can we talk about this worm? Is it still in his head? And how much do we think it's potentially impairing him?
It's still in his brain. It's dead and it's been calcified. So once you have a worm in your brain and it dies, it doesn't go anywhere. In the brain, the worm is probably alive in his brain for several years and you wouldn't know it. And normally what happens when a worm dies, so it lives in your brain and the brain actually is really good at dealing with it. It sort of just copes with it. But then when the worm starts to die, the worm causes inflammation and that's where the problems start. And normally when people have this condition, they show up at a hospital with seizures. So it was interesting that in 2010, Bobby Kennedy, he's suffering from, he said, severe long and short-term memory loss. And he goes and a friend of his says, you should you may have a brain tumor. His uncle Teddy had just died of brain cancer the year before. But he also, at the same time, got a test done for mercury poisoning. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. But so he goes into the hospital and he gets scans on his brain and all of the top surgeons and the neurosurgeons in the country are sent the scan. He knows who they are because they had just dealt with Ted Kennedy. And several of them concluded he had a brain tumor. He was immediately scheduled for surgery down at Duke University by the same doctor that operated on Teddy Kennedy. And then just out of the blue, while he's packing, he gets a call from...
Hey, yeah. Shout out to Do All Things. What is this woman's credential to speak with such authority on this? I guess she did her investigation. It's the New York Times, after all. Most trusted news source. Oh, sorry. Oh, boy, what came over me? Oh, sorry. Excuse me. What came over me? New York Times, an outlet that always stood against war, never promoted it. Sorry, excuse me.
A doctor at New York Presbyterian, and he said that doctor said, look, you have not earned a surgery. I don't think you have a brain tumor. I think there's a parasite in your head, and I want you to come in. So Bobby went with that rather than going for the brain surgery.
Sure. I mean, wouldn't we all rather have a worm in our head than a brain tumor?
That was the option.
No, I don't want neither. I don't want a dead worm in my head. I don't want no tumor in my head. I don't know a hammer to the head. I don't want a kick to the head. I don't want a slap to the head. Maybe have a kiss to the head. No pun intended. But there you go. There you go. I don't want any of that stuff. The correct response, BSTNC, is, boy, I'd hate to have either one of those things. No, I don't want a brain worm in my head.
Option. So, and it turns out he did subsequent scans. It didn't grow, and he said that they've determined it's a worm. He didn't know what type, but a lot of the experts that I talked to said it was a tapeworm. But the interesting part about this is that the symptoms of that are not the memory loss that he was describing. So it turns out the mercury poisoning is likely the cause of the memory loss, which is another just whole thing. He had mercury poisoning, which is crazy because he is an anti-vaxxer.
He's obsessed with
mercury. And he also was an environmentalist for years and dealt with mercury.
Okay, all right. Again, calling RFK Jr. anti-vaxxer. Fine, whatever. All right, look. I think Jimmy Dore's been proven correct about that corporate media, but anyways.
And fish. But he told me he was eating a really heavy diet every day of tuna fish, of sushi tuna, and perch. So kind of, I guess, a wealthy man's diet.
Well, but it's not an environmentalist diet, right? I asked him about health and also overfishing.
Right, and I asked him about that, and he just said, I love tuna fish sandwiches. So he was eating them all the time, and he got mercury poisoning, which I think you can never say for sure, but I think that's probably, after talking to a number of experts, that's what caused the memory loss.
So let's go on a little bit further, because so many people are talking about RFK Jr.'s brain, but hey, listen. This wouldn't be Harlan's meet if we didn't have fun. Dead worm found RFK Jr. is already polling higher than Biden in 11 states. Brain worm, 32%. Joe Biden, 29%. Who would you vote for? The dead brainworm or Joe Biden? Type 1 for Kit. Be serious. It's Joe Biden, you awful man. Type 2. I want a bold change. Hashtag dead brainworm 2024. Step aside, everybody. We got a real candidate. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Who would you vote for? So yes, as it says right now, again, this is an article from RT, just to trigger the libs. RFK Jr. once thought he had a brain tumor, but the dark spot on his scans turned out to be a dead parasitic worm, the New York Times reported, citing legal documents. President John Kennedy's nephew, who is currently running as an independent, has argued that he is both younger and healthier than incumbent President Joe Biden and his chief rival Donald Trump. In 2010, however, RFK Jr. was experienced brain fog and memory loss so severe, he turned to top neurologists for advice about a possible tumor, according to the Times. One New York doctor gave him a different option, however, a dead parasite. Oh, God. The anomaly, sorry about that stutter, seen on scans was caused by a worm that got onto my brain and ate a portion of it and then died. Hey, you got to be careful what you eat, folks. That goes for worms included. In the same legal interview, Kenny said he clearly had cognitive problems, including short-term, long-term memory loss. In a subsequent interview with The Times, however, he attributed those to mercury poisoning caused by his fish-heavy diet at the time. Blood tests found mercury levels 10 times higher than the U.S. EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, considers safe. Kenny said, adding that he fully recovered, undergoing chelation therapy, said that wrong probably, to remove the heavy metal from his body. By the way, be careful what you eat, folks, too, because apparently a lot of our seafood has mercury in it, too. Isn't that fantastic? According to the Times article, the cyst containing the dead worm remained in Kenny's brain and did not require treatment, nor did he have any after effects from it. He said he did not know what type of parasite it may have been or how he contracted it, though he suspected it was on a trip to South Asia. Which, by the way, folks, look, I know a lot of us still have problems with the pandemic vaccination, but look, when you do go overseas, it is important to at least get some shots here and there. So, you're not putting yourself at risk. All right. Trust me on it. You just got to do those things. There you go. The 2012 document was related to divorce proceedings from Mary Richards Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s second wife. Kenny argued at the time that his earnings potential had been diminished by cognitive struggles. So, what can we take away from this? Well, this is just another piece of ammunition that corporate media can use against RFK Jr., third parties, independents, etc. And of course, we know that they're on this complete warpath to silence and suppress anyone that is challenging Joe Biden. And yes, by some proxy, even Trump is saying that RFK Jr. is a spoiler threat. Do I think this brain worm is going to change anything? No, it's just another shiny jangling of keys that's going to distract us until we finally get to election night in November. But okay, lesson of the day: wash your hands, boil water. Boil water so you clean everything up properly. Wash everything. Cook your foods properly. Read the labels. Don't blow it. Just cook properly. Follow the instructions, and you'll be okay. But in this day and age, where our whole environment's being polluted, good luck. You thought dodgeball was crazy? Look at what we got to eat and drink every single day here in the good old US of A. Hell, Chicago still has lead in its drinking waters. And plus, you have to pay out of your own pocket to get those lead pipes removed from your property. Seems like we got a whole bunch of brain worms running our politicians. What does that tell you?